Hi everyone, today we're joined by Julian and Mayhill. Thank you guys so much for joining today.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course. So just a quick introduction, Julian and Mayhill, known as on the circuit as Hawken BL, debated at the Hawken School for 4 years. Throughout their career, they amassed 11 bids and qualified to the NSDA Nationals their junior year, along with the TOC their sophomore, junior, and senior years. Most notably, they championed the 2023 NCFL Grand Nationals, reached semifinals at the 2022 NCFL Grand Nationals, finals at the 2022 Barkley Forum for high schools, quarterfinals at the 2020 Glenbrook Speech and Debate Tournament, and quarterfinals at the 2022 Plum Classic. They reached elimination rounds at the 2022 Apple Valley Tournament and the 2022 NDCA National Championships, and many more. So, quite accomplished career. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We'll start with the first segment, which is just learning about you guys. So, first off, do you guys want to talk about how you got started in debate? What was that like?
Do you want to go, or we can do both of us? I don't know.
Yeah,
I can go first. So when I went to high school, I was the only one from my middle school that went to Hawken, which is where I went to high school. So to make friends, I just joined the debate team, and then it ended up working out pretty well.
Great.
Yeah, mine was pretty. Mine was a little less similar, but it was still pretty similar. Hawken High School has a middle school that's connected to it, so I also came in from a different school, so I didn't have that many friends already. But my situation was someone else on our team from another Hawken debate team, Hawken TO, the O, Parker O'Keefe. We were friends before we joined debate in the first few months of school, and then he brought me in because he was doing debate anyways, and then I was brought over from Congress to PF. So yeah.
Okay, quickly, I just want to talk about that. So you said you did Congress. Well, did you enjoy Congress? Why did you switch to PF? What was that like?
No, yeah, I did not enjoy Congress. Well, I didn't actually compete in any tournaments in Congress. I did it for 3 weeks or something. I went to practices and then I moved over to PF. The main reason was because I was kind of lazy when I entered high school, so I didn't want to have to write out all of my speeches and stuff before the round, and Congress was just a whole ton of work in the practices, whereas PF seemed to be a more relaxed environment, and it was also more on the topics that I was interested in, especially the topics we were talking about at that point.
Okay, pretty interesting. Quickly, I want to talk about what Ohio debate is like, since you guys are from that state. So just give us the gist on how competitive your circuit is, and I don't know, what does a typical team or judge look like in Ohio?
So 4 years ago, when we were freshmen, our circuit was actually pretty competitive. There was University KK was on our circuit. There was a pretty good Hawken team on our circuit, and then there were other teams on our circuit that competed at a national level. Over the course of 4 years, though, that severely dwindled down. So by the time we were juniors and seniors, there wasn't anyone really left on our circuit. So our circuit just became incredibly lay debate. So that's where we got most of our lay debating skills, is just constantly most weekends debating other Ohio teams that don't have much technical skill, but they were pretty strong on the lay. So we had to match up with that.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up on that. So if Ohio, I guess, established your lay foundation, where did you guys start learning more technical debate from? Was that camps or different coaches? Maybe talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so I think part of that is, like Mayhill mentioned, we did have at Hawken, we had some older teams in our freshman and sophomore year that were competitive nationally. So we had a team that was a junior when we were freshmen and a team that was seniors. So we did have some relation to teams that were competing technically and at a national circuit, although that wasn't a huge part of how we actually got into it. I think it was generally for us, it was probably just because COVID happened, and so we were able to attend all these tournaments online, and it wasn't a big commitment at all. So our sophomore year, if I pull up my tab room, we went to a national tournament basically every single weekend, and we just sort of learned naturally and through ourselves, just through experience debating on the national circuit.
Okay, yeah, I really like that. And then a quick follow-up on, I guess, your team. So you did mention some teams were pretty successful and had that national tournament experience. I was just wondering, what basically differentiates Hawkins' team from other teams, you think, around the nation or maybe just in your state? Is there like a different team culture? Maybe your coach is doing something different. What do you think contributes to that success we see on the national level?
So I think there's a couple, there's a couple of differences. So one is our coach is like really into maintaining our local circuit success and our success at states. So as much as because no matter what topic we're debating, except like the TOC topic, we're also debating local tournaments as well as national tournaments on that topic. So our coach is like very specific and very and puts a lot of emphasis on the fact that we don't go like incredibly tech in rounds we did. So majority of our debate style came down to, even in tech rounds, we never went that fast. We'd always speak like relatively slowly compared to other teams. And we'd still win a decent amount of rounds by debating like that. So I think that's where our style came from, because our coach didn't want us to go fast, because we also had to debate local tournaments, which, as we mentioned, are incredibly lay. So we basically wrote one case for NAT tournaments and local tournaments. I don't know if Julian wants to add anything.
Yeah, I mean, in comparison to, I guess, other schools nationally, I would say Hawken, our circuit is kind of interesting because it's not that bad. Like in Ohio, it's very lay, but like Mehul mentioned, especially when we were in our earlier grades in high school, there's other teams around the Cleveland area where we're from that are actually like decent. They're not like incredible or like really competitive nationally, but it's not like we have some, even locally, like in terms of our state, we have some exposure to more of like a flay debate style, even if it's nothing compared to like other states like New York or Texas.
Gotcha. So Mayo and Julian, you guys both mentioned, I guess, how flay debate or even lay debate was pretty foundational. I was just curious because I think for myself, I found that as a judge, flay debate and lay debate is a lot easier to judge than tech debate when everyone's just going really bumpy. Do you find one style debate is more dominant in terms of developing debate skills or even getting judges? Would that be flay debate for you guys, or what's the balance on that?
Yeah. Okay. So I can. Yeah. So like Mehul mentioned, even though like we did debate a lot nationally, we generally in like the vast majority of rounds that we debated went not very fast at all. Like partially because of our coach, but just partially because of our debate style. Even in rounds, in basically every round possible, we went closer to the flay side than the tech side. So, we try to win the flow and everything. That was obviously something that we were really into. I think both of us coming from Ohio, we actually we didn't want to really debate lay at all for the first few years. Like we sort of hated it and thought bad upon it. But as we got further into our careers, we realized that, we basically rediscovered the merits of more flay and lay debate style, and flay debate has been both of our favorites for basically our whole careers. So yeah, we've basically on most judges, I mean, we've had a few rounds that are more technical, of course, with progressive arguments and stuff like that, and we've debated against that a lot. But even in scenarios like that, we found it at least generally the best to just debate in a more flay debate style with the same sort of technical focus on the flow and stuff, but with more focus on analysis and not talking at like 100 miles an hour or anything like that.
Mayo, do you want anything or?
No, I think he covered most of it. I agree with him. I think flay debate is probably the most interesting type of debate to watch because like super technical debate, as you mentioned, it's when you go way too fast, it's ridiculously blippy. And honestly, as a judge, I have to think too much into the round, which is like at the end of the day, just a high school debate round. I don't want to think too much about it. So when teams talk way too fast, it's more work for the judge. So I think play is better in terms of argument quality and enjoyment.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think one benefit that probably you guys saw is that if you go super technical, you also need a huge amount of prep to go super blippy, or I don't know, you're just not making high argument quality. But speaking of prep, just really curious, how do you guys prep? I remember talking to you guys at NCFLs maybe it was TOCs, but the gist was there's no prep going on. So how did you guys prep, I guess, early on, and how did you guys prep maybe later in your careers?
Nate, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so when we started like going to nat tournaments more, we did like a lot of prep because we were super into debate. We like school wasn't that hard, so we were just like heavily into debate. Any free time we had, we're doing prep. We had multiple cases, multiple contentions. We wrote tons of blocks. Then like second half of our junior year and like first half of our senior year came around, and like college showed up. Classes got slightly harder, so we kind of like ran out of time. And then also in our sophomore year, as Julian mentioned, we went to national tournaments every single weekend. So we got like a little burnt out from that.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount of prep we did drastically declined during that time. But I think our majority of our debate style, like throughout all of high school, hasn't even relied on how much prep we have, because we do a lot more work with analysis and weighing than we do with just like dumping block responses on arguments. So even though we didn't prep as much in our like second half of our career, we still had like similar or even better success.
Yeah. And I guess just to talk about a little about how we prepped, which is kind of, I guess, interesting for us, is yeah, like Mayhol said, we didn't really focus on quantity. Like we weren't one of the teams that just read like, 6 turns or something on every contention. We had a few really strong responses. And the same was true of our cases. So like almost every topic since maybe, I don't know, halfway through sophomore year or so, we sort of spent like, all right, so Mayhol's sort of he's more of the prep guy in terms of like getting all the foundations together. So like he built the whole house, and then I added like, something that's important, like the roof or something. I don't know, that's a terrible analogy. But basically like the function of our prep team, or the way we sort of worked, was Mayhol would make our cases like, say we read 3 contentions, or we usually read 2, but say we read 3, he would write like 4 of the contentions. And then also our team is like really needy in the sense that Mayhol he would write like everyone's cases for the whole team because everyone would just use it. But then my prep was like, I wouldn't say I'm the most efficient prepper, but I think my prep is pretty good because I'd spend like, we'd get the topic and I'd spend like a week and a half researching it, and everyone would be like, where's the case? Like, what's going on? And there'd be absolutely no progress. And then I'd send Mayhol like a Google Doc that's just like 2 pages of just URLs. And it would be like a really good, unique contention that he'd have to write the whole thing. But it was a really good idea. So generally our prep strategy was like, do the bare minimum. So, get the cases. And then I would spend a ton of time trying to find the optimal case. That way we could operate on that quality over quantity sort of mindset. Because otherwise, like usually, honestly, for our contentions, that like the special one that I wrote, usually almost every topic, the teams we faced, even if they had a ton of prep about our other contentions, would have like literally no responses against our other contention, which made it easier to not talk super fast because we just kick out of the bad contention and go for the good one every single time, and no one really seemed to catch on ever.
Okay, that was a very interesting analogy and story, but maybe just give the viewer and also me a sense of like what type of argument this is. So like, I don't know, at NCFLs, or maybe choose a common topic that you remember well. What would your contention be versus like a stock argument?
I think a good example is NCFL, because like we were talking to a bunch of other teams at the tournament, and like it was universally agreed there just was no response to this argument we read. So at NCFL, majority of teams, the topic was I think the benefits of AI in education outweigh the harms.
Yeah.
Majority of teams are reading something about teacher burnout on the con, or like losing teachers because they get replaced by AI, some arguments like that. What we read on the Pro was a really unique argument about AI in education, which is that it's beneficial for reproductive education in regions that don't have access to that education. Like students go online, find an AI bot, and it teaches them about reproductive education. That's the type of unique argument we'd find, because it's something different. Like no one else at NCFL was reading that argument. And it's also something that's pretty difficult to respond to, because like I still haven't even thought of a response. And like I was one of the people that wrote the case. I ran it pretty much almost every round at NCFL. So, and I still can't think of a response. Those are the type of contentions we wrote. And we did it on like the legalizing all illicit drugs topic in January 2 years ago. And then also our sophomore year, January, we also wrote an argument on the NSA topic like that.
Okay, wow, that's quite interesting. I mean, that's pretty smart. Honestly, like having that balance between an argument that is kind of logical, right? Like that argument definitely is logical, but also debaters won't expect it. I want to move quickly into some other questions, just more, I guess, big picture on your debate careers. So first off, I know a lot of debaters when they go into the activity, they think of quitting at least once. Did you guys think of quitting ever in your careers? Julian,
There were like vague moments.
big moments.
Oh,
Elaborate.
Yeah,
Yeah. So there were like vague moments, like my freshman year. I can actually tell this story. It's pretty embarrassing, but it's also kind of funny. So last tournament of my freshman year, I was with a different partner, and we went to Stanford in like JV, and we broke at that tournament. And our first break round, a team ran an argument about like why milk is important to like supporting the proletariat or something like that.
No.
It was a meme argument, and yeah, we lost to it. Yeah, we lost to that argument. Like after that, obviously, I was like thinking about quitting, and then I showed up sophomore year, and I was like, no, I'm good. And then I started doing more debate.
Wow, that's incredible. What about you, Julian? Any moments where you thought of quitting the activity?
Well, okay, so I didn't really ever want to quit debate until my senior year. It wasn't that I wanted to quit in senior year either. It was just that I wasn't as driven to do it, especially in the later half. Like we did less tournaments. We did actually end up doing less, but they were tournament like almost before every tournament. Me and Mayhol would be like, "Why are we here? Like, what are we doing? This is so worthless for us." But yeah, it ended up doing well, and we had fun at a lot of the tournaments. But especially like TOC, we did no prep.
Oh yeah.
We were just signed up for that tournament, and we were just like there, just like walking around the campus. We weren't even literally dressed up. We were just like chilling there. So yeah, there were times in senior year where I wasn't as motivated to really dig into debate like I was in previous years. But more of the burnout definitely happened for Mayhol because he was the one who was like doing all the work, and I was just kind of like there.
Yeah, I will say I feel like TOC is a great tournament to either like try hard and like go all in or just don't care at all. Certainly I don't think I don't think I did that much prep for TOC. I did have a prep group, but like the year before that, I grinded out like 10 turns on each contention. Like that was my prep. This crazy stuff. Okay, second part of that question. So let's flip it. So instead of quitting, what do you find most enjoyable in debate? And we can start with, I guess, Julian.
Most enjoyable in debate. I guess okay. So from a broader sense, I think especially the style of debate that we do a lot or used to is like very enjoyable because it was, I mean, obviously it feels nice to win rounds, but it feels nice and it is nice to have an argument that's super unique and be able to share it with other people and then have them, bounce their logical questions off of it in round. But especially because both of us would know a lot more about that argument than anyone else would because it would be so unique. And so it would be easier for us to respond to all of their logical arguments. So we sort of, by having unique contentions, we were able to manipulate the rounds sort of like back 5 years, where instead of being so prep heavy, they were more focused on logical debate just because people didn't have preparation for what we were arguing. So that made it super fun when we were in round because I don't think you can find someone, maybe you can, but like they're rare people that really like just straight tech rounds where you're just talking really fast and nothing's actually really going on. Like I think most people's favorite form of debate is somewhere in between where you're still, you have a judge that's competent and really understands what's going on, but you're not debating like just so fast that it's not even remotely fun for you. So yeah, I think that's like the main reason I was in debate. Like I just kind of like talking and logically thinking about arguments, and so that's I think the main reason a lot of people join in the first place, and that's what we were able to cultivate.
Mayo,
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, you agree?
Yeah. I agree with him for sure. I also liked the whole prep aspect of debate, especially in my first few years. I did a lot of prep because I liked doing some work before a tournament, like writing a unique case in some instances. And as Julian mentioned, I get to go take it into a round and like bounce it off of other teams and see how something I wrote is like how good it is, basically.
So, wow, okay. I really like those answers because the two people I have interviewed, they both talking about community. So the fact that you gave me a different answer, it's quite nice. Even though I think community is also a big part of it, at least for me, like community was always huge, just like the friends you make. Certainly, me and Hawken, we're now best buds over this year, and that was great. Okay, I think we'll do 2 more questions in this little segment. First off, maybe one of you could describe the partner dynamic you have, maybe outside of just the prep part. But I guess what do you guys like as partners? Are you guys like more the jokester type where you're just trying to have fun? Is one of you more of like the authoritarian leader who's trying to make sure everyone does their stuff? Like maybe Mayho, we'll start with you on that.
So outside of debate, like we're really good friends. So like we don't have any problem like communicating with each other about anything. But in terms of like the dynamic as partners, I think I was like someone who tried to be an authoritarian leader, but epically failed because just no one would listen. So like I'd try to get Julian or other people on the team to do prep, and then like I keep asking like, oh, how are your cases and whatever, and they just say like, oh, I'm working on it, and then like midnight the night before the tournament, I just see like 5 different people text me and they're like, I'm using your case. So like I'm not gonna, even if I said no, you can't use it, they'd use it anyway. So I just gave up on that.
Oh my, I feel you on that one. Julian, what about you? Any value to that question on partner dynamics?
Yeah. So I mean, he definitely covered it. It's definitely our dynamic has. I guess I can answer the like either or that you gave us. Like, yeah, we're definitely in it, at least in the back half of our career and sort of the whole time. We're in it to have fun. Like, we had a lot of fun in rounds, like especially locally where there was basically no stakes. We could just do whatever. Like one time, like we just rhymed in round, like we just did a poem. Just like in Final Focus, just because it was fun. Like, especially locally, we're just sort of chilling, having fun. And as we talked about at TOC, like once we were in our later half of our career, we were definitely just in it to have fun. Partner dynamic wise, yeah, Mayhol's definitely he's definitely more trying to get it like our shit together, basically.
Yeah.
Because also like for the first 2.5, okay, like basically our whole debate career, it got better in the back half, but basically for the first bit of our debate career, like in round, our partner dynamic was you're supposed to have prep for summary, but I would just use all of it for rebuttal. So he would have absolutely no time. And that was sort of indicative of our broader partner dynamic. Like he was doing the work. I was just sort of there for the rounds and I did some prep and it got better the later part of our debate career. But yeah, that was definitely sort of our dynamic. He was more authoritarian.
Gotcha. Okay, that's really funny. Okay, one final question. Will you guys debate in college?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Julian, I don't know what he's up to, but I'm not gonna debate in college because they don't have PF. They just have like policy and something that's more Congress type, which is like the 2 ends of the spectrum I don't like. I think like Congress is on one side, policy's on the other, and PF is somewhere in the middle. And like that's where I like to debate, but that's not a thing in college, so I'm not gonna debate. But I'm still engaged in the circuit. I'll try to judge tournaments as much as I can.
Yeah, Julian.
Yeah, I also. I mean, there's obviously a debate team, but I don't really think I'm gonna do it. I will, like Mehul said, like I will definitely judge tournaments. Like I want to coach people. I want to still be involved at some level in debate, especially nationally, but I'm not going to continue like my own personal career. I don't think that doesn't seem at least valuable to me.
Oh, I mean, totally fair. Also, one thing I do want to comment on, I think, like the spectrum of debate, I think PF is in a really nice center where you get aspects of like rhetoric if you want to go there, play debate, flow debate, like persuasion. And one extra I'll give is when I was doing world schools at NSTAs, PF was a really nice foundation. Like basically, I was automatically good at worlds because I had aspects of all types of debate. So something I just wanted to mention for something more broad audience. Okay, now I'll move on to the second part of this interview, which will talk about NCFL specifically. Obviously, that's what the viewers are here for, so let's start there. We'll start with a really broad question. What are your thoughts on NCFLs as a tournament and just as an experience?
I think as an experience, it's really fun. It's like end of the year, a bunch of people are there from all over the country, and it's usually held in like a pretty nice city. Like our junior year, it was in Washington D.C. It was really nice to walk around the city after tournaments and whatnot. Um, and then this year it was in Kentucky, but it was in the downtown part of Kentucky. So after rounds, we'd also go walking through the city and go eat at different places. Um, like competition wise, and as the tournament itself, I think it's out of like the three main national tournaments, I think it's like the easiest because like NSDA, there's so many teams there from all over the country, and a lot of the teams you'd see at TOC and stuff are also at NSDA.
Yeah.
Majority of those teams aren't at NCFL, and NCFL is way more lay than any of those other tournaments, so you can get by without doing much prep as well.
Yeah, totally. And Julian, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so NCFL, I agree. It's super fun, definitely. Probably one of, if not like the most fun tournament for me. But yeah, in terms of the competition, it's definitely the most lay of any of the national tournaments. But I think it's kind of interesting because you do. It's sort of weird because you at nationals, just NSDA nationals or TOC, you get sort of the same people that you debate on the national circuit. But at NCFLs, you get like you just get like a ton of like random local teams that are good in their district, but like don't debate nationally really at all. And then they just show up at NCFLs. So, I mean, it's like for some reason, you just don't really know, like if you're incorporated heavily in the national circuit, once you get to NCFL, like, like 3 teams for some reason. And a lot of the teams you do know like might be there, but for some reason, when you're debating teams, even in the late elimination rounds, like there are people that don't debate nationally you've probably never seen before. So it's kind of an interesting experience. I mean, it's sort of a whole different debate style.
Yeah, totally valid. I remember like same exact thoughts as you guys had. Second question I wanted to ask. So I think your run at NCFLs was certainly pretty amazing. You only lost 4 out of 34 total ballots, and you won finals on a 5-0. So question there is, how did you do it? Pretty big question, but we'll start with Julian.
Yeah. So okay, I guess prep wise, actually, so we debated NCFL the year before and we did pretty well. So we have history debating there. Like we had an understanding of the sort of like people that you were debating against and the types of judges that were there at the tournament. But what was also probably most important was that for NCFL our senior year, we had this like new debate guy come to our school, and we had an intensive class for 3 weeks before NCFL that was basically just focused on preparing for NCFL and nationals. So we had a lot more prep than we usually do for tournaments, especially like NCFL, which, like Mehul said, isn't like as required at a tournament like NCFL than it is at TOC. But at NCFL this year, because we had so much time to work on our arguments and our cases, we were really able to consolidate our arguments down to some strong narratives and really come up with ways to wrap it all into the general themes that we were going for. So I think we were just super prepared coming into it. NCFL in our senior year, we have a lot of experience locally in Ohio, which is basically the same like circuit level, same sort of debate style. And we had experience debating there before. Those are probably the main reasons we succeeded, I think.
Okay, yeah. Mehul, do you want anything to that?
I think Julian mentioned it pretty clearly. We were very fortunate. Our school has a 3-week intensive class period that happens to be right before NCFL. So pretty much every day, 6 hours a day, like when we should be doing normal like schoolwork, our school is letting us just sit there and prep for debate all day. And at NCFL this year, I think like 4 of our teams went, so they were also all prepping with us. Yeah. So we had way more prep than we normally do. So it made it like it put us in the optimal position to have the run we did.
Gotcha. Okay, so since 6 hours a day for 3 weeks sounds intense. And the achievements and results clearly were there. Do you ever wonder, like, if you put in that much prep during the real school year, what could have happened at like TOCs, for instance, or different big tournaments? Like, was that ever a thought to you?
Yeah, we talked about this a couple of times during the year, and we'd like look back and be like, oh, if we prepped for like any tournament really, we could have done so well because there were so many tournaments where we're getting to like deep elimination rounds and whatnot on a case we wrote the night before or something. So, and like having 10 pages of blocks. So like we always look back and say, oh, what if, but I think it was kind of fun to go into tournaments not having much prep because it added like higher stakes to whatever we were doing. So I would probably not do the prep even if I could do it again.
Yeah, fair. Okay. Okay, another question before we do the new Zoom. But you want to explain what happened in final? So, like, getting to that 5-0, I talked to Julian, right, and you were like, you won. I was like, okay, so you probably won, because every time I've asked you before, you've been really humble about it. So, what happened in finals? Like, break it down a little bit for the viewer. Was there something that you did that would win the round? Like, just break it down in terms of you and your opponents and the arguments that are being run.
I can do it.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm pulling up. Okay, I'm not going to pull up Tableau, but I was going to see what side we were on, but I'm pretty sure we're in pro because we were in pro. Like, where were we on? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, coming into finals, like we debated pro, like basic. I think we did one round in out rounds that was on con, but every other round we debated on the pro side. And like Mehul said, that tournament was just like it was sort of one example out of many, but in this particular instance as well, we had a case that was super unique and basically unrespondable. Like you could not respond to the case. Like it was just objectively true, and it had a big enough impact that basically every round, all we had to do to win the ballot was cast a little bit of doubt on our opponent's case and then do weighing. Like we didn't even have to, really, honestly, we could have probably not responded to people's cases and still won rounds on the flow level because no matter what people did, our argument was just true. And that's sort of a problem with like a lot of topics where sometimes there's an argument that's just objectively true. So it makes it really hard to argue the other side. But yeah, we were able to come up with a cool argument that was very unique. And just like basically every other person we debated that whole tournament, the people in finals also didn't really have anything to say to it. And their case, luckily, there were some con cases that we were going against that block-wise we weren't as prepared for, but their case was, I think, a sole contention about AI discrimination. It was, I think, like a subpoint about gender discrimination and then a subpoint about racial discrimination. And both of those things were topics that we had a ton of blocks for because, like, if you look up AI in education right now, one of the first articles you'll find is about how it's racist or it's biased against certain gender groups or certain racial groups. So either way, like we had a lot of prep on the topic and we were able to give a lot of responses to their case, and they just didn't have that against ours. And the judges, luckily, it seemed pretty flow for NCFL. So yeah, we just won the round on the flow, and it came through in the decision.
Yeah, totally. Mehul, do you want to add anything to that?
I think Julian covered it. It was a pretty lucky scenario. We got pro on the flip, and as I already mentioned, our pro case was really strong.
Yeah.
And the other team they read arguments, we had blocks too, so it was pretty clean.
So wait, in that round, do you choose to flip pro, or are you choosing second? Like, what's the flip like for you guys? What's the strategy?
Our strategy for pretty much any tournament where we had a unique argument like this was we just picked that side of the argument. So same was true at NCFL. In finals, we won the flip, so we just picked pro, and then they picked second. And yeah.
Oh wow, interesting. Okay, I mean that's one thing that is really cool of me. Because for me, I always choose second. And maybe I should start choosing different sides more. One thing I'm really curious about, because I think fundamentally debate is more of a marathon than it is a race. What do you guys do to have fun after rounds are finished? Like, do you just go out to eat or do anything fun? At like 2 a.m. Talk to us about that stuff.
Okay,
you can go.
Yeah. Okay, so well, the majority of our debate career was debated online, so we didn't have that much of a chance to really have fun in between rounds, just because the rounds were shorter. We were both at our homes, and yeah, basically that was the situation. But the rounds and the debate tournaments that we did have in person, we had fun. I mean, we would I guess, so at NCFL last year, me and another person on our team both brought our Xboxes, so we sort of just like gamed on both of the nights. We played these. I don't even remember the games, but we played these games, and we played with some one of the people from Durham as well. But yeah, I mean, we have fun, especially in our senior year. It was like relaxed, so we just did sort of whatever we wanted in between rounds. We were, especially once we got to the tournament, like our burnout rate was very, very like very high. So we had no, capacity to prep at the tournament. We were not into that. So at NCFL, like we didn't do a single piece of prep the whole tournament. We just gamed when we were in the place. And like Mehul said, like we'd go get food. The tournaments that are downtown, like NCFL, like I would recommend everyone do NCFL if you can, because it's usually in a really nice place. And so walking around the city is super fun. Like you can just do that all night. And especially if you know other people on the national circuit, you'll run into people or you can just go with them and hang out with them. So yeah, I think it's fun to just do whatever, hang out with friends from other schools that you don't see a lot. That's sort of the main thing we would do at national tournaments for fun.
Yeah, I mean, I really love that. Because I think too many debaters just get caught up in just competing like 24/7, and I think once you step back a little bit, learn to have some fun, and a little bit. That's one way you see some of your improvement, but also just see debate as way more enjoyable. And Mayho, if you want to add anything to what Julian said, like just go for it.
Yeah, I fully agree with them. Going to tournaments, you just go out with your friends, your team, especially our senior year. It was like our last year debating. So we took every opportunity we could have to go out with our team because like that was our last chance to do it. And then even over Zoom, like after rounds, our whole team would like join a group FaceTime call and like just make inside jokes about whatever round we had. And then those inside jokes carried through to in-person tournaments as well. So I think even during online debate, we were able to have those moments outside of rounds.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for me and my team, we play different games after tournaments. Like if we all didn't break, then we would just play what's that game we like guess the it's like a code game, code names, something like that. Yeah, code names. Yeah, that was a classic on our team. So that was really enjoyable. Okay, I want to also talk about some of the advice you would give. So we'll spin this a couple ways. First off, what advice would you give to yourself? So freshman you, middle school you, that's going into debate. We can start with Mehul.
Yeah, so advice I'd give myself is like don't take it way too seriously. Especially my freshman year, I'd like debate so like tense and like one of the ballots I got said I was robotic. So I think I would have just told myself to like debate more casually because our coach also was super into being like really formal, using specific words, not like acting super casually in round. And I realized later I don't like debating like that, especially in PF. I think you should debate more casually. Yeah, I would tell myself to do that.
Yeah, okay. Julian, what about you?
Yeah, so I think, so I was lucky enough that sort of my freshman year self, like I was pretty chill in debate. I've always kind of been just like a casual participant in that way. But the one thing, this is debate related, and I already talked about this a little, but I would say like my freshman year self, my sophomore year self, maybe a little into junior year, but generally, I think when me and Mehul first got introduced, when we first got introduced to the national circuit and technical debate, like we sort of went down like a rabbit hole. Like we tried to like be really tech, like we read like a bunch of like theory documents. Like we didn't actually read them in round, but we just like looked at them and stuff.
Yeah.
Like so we were really into debate in that way. I think it would have been competitively better and probably less stressful if we just like if we could understand that. I know tech debate is fun when you first get into it, but like especially when we were losing rounds, like sophomore year, I think we got like 5 or something like silver bids. So like, I think we also, whatever. But yeah, we got a lot of tournaments where we'd reach double octa finals and then not make it to octas because the judges would be lay and they'd drop us. And we got really mad about that. So I think I would tell myself to sort of chill out and understand that like lay debate is a viable form of debate too. And not embracing it causes like a lot more stress than it does to just like debate lay in front of lay judges. So yeah, I think that's the advice I'd go to.
That is so valid. Yeah, really enjoyed the advice you gave there, both of you. So now I'm gonna flip it. Instead of your younger self, what advice would you give to debaters who are starting out, in the freshman year, who just started debate, and might even be reaching the plateau you're talking about where they're getting really pissed off at debate, they're not seeing the success they want to? What would you say to them? Julian, we can start with you, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. My hole is muted. All right. So yeah. So I would say that, so like every year, obviously, especially recently, the debate circuit nationally and locally gets more technical and progressive. And I think, at least in my own experience, that causes a lot more stress because you have to do more prep and you have to be more aware of all these minute details. Whereas more play or more analysis-based debate is way more interesting, fun, and I think personally that is way more useful because I know people say in the real world and it's cliche, but like in the real world, no one's gonna care about your like A is the interpretation, your theory shell or your critique. Like just no, that's just not a thing. Whereas having actual analytical skills and being able to talk at a human pace and reason through things that might not make sense otherwise is a actually super important skill. And it can help you competitively. Like teams have debated at TOC and done really well, even though it's gotten more progressive over time. People have debated and done well. We've done well. Other teams have done well by debating slowly and analytically. Speed is not always the answer. And I think for new teams that are going to be coming into a circuit that's heavily progressive and becoming more fast and more technical every single day, I think embracing some of that like old school, just analytical, slower paced quality over quantity debate is going to be super, super important. Because I just like as an anecdote, so many rounds I've debated, teams that go fast but don't really have an understanding of like analytical debate and don't really give quality responses can read like 50, like not 50, but like 10 responses on my arguments, and just because I'm focusing on them more logically and slowly, it'll take me way less, like a fourth of the time that they spent reading all those like goofy arguments to just sort of brush them away, just because I'm focusing on it from a more critical thinking, analytical, logical standpoint. And I think that'll be super helpful, especially, and the reason I'm giving it advice is because people who are debating now are going to be going into a circuit that's mostly people who aren't doing that. So I think it'd be super helpful if people do that.
Sure. Okay, Mehul, do you want to add anything on advice towards younger debaters around the nation? Oh, you're muted, by the way.
Yeah. So I was actually captain of our team last year, and a very large amount of our novices would go to one tournament, not like go up on stage to get like a tiny little award at a local tournament, and then they would text me and be like, "I'm sad, I'm quitting," and I'd have to console them and be like,
"Yeah,
everyone's bad, they're novice here. No one's gonna suddenly get really good when they just start. So you just have to wait it out. Like any skill takes time. No one's born just being amazing at debate. Everyone's putting time and work into it."
Dude, that is really good advice. Like I'll say, when you're a freshman, 8th grader, and you're like seeing people go to TOC and getting bids, you're like, wow, I want to be like them. But something I've seen definitely, just when people graduate, like every single year it becomes so much easier because the people that you thought were great, like they're gone. And then you start seeing, oh, it's your friends that are getting bids, it's your community, and you're a part of that community, which I think is really cool. Okay, final question. So for debaters who I think are entering, your age, like last year. So let's say they're entering senior year or they're entering junior year. What advice do you give them to avoid burnout or to balance things like college apps, school, and debate all at once? And I guess we'll start with Julian again.
Yeah, advice for burnout, I'd say that's a hard one. I don't think I've met like many debaters who aren't burned out at the end of their 4 years. So advice-wise, I think the biggest thing is just to make sure you're coming at debate with an attitude that's, to have fun and not to don't be super worried about, your competitive success. Like it's not that big of a deal how well you're doing at tournaments. Like it's just like isn't that big of a deal at the end of the day. I know like everyone sort of joins debate for like college applications and it's helpful, but like at the end of the day, no one really cares if you got like first or like seventh at national tournaments. Like you're competing nationally, you're doing well. It basically all looks the same. It's not the end of the world. I think once you start getting into junior year and senior year where you're doing all that college work, focus on that and get that done before you focus on doing heavy debate prep. Like some of the debaters at our school, mostly in policy, but you know, I'm sure it happens in PF as well, like really focused on debate and did debate work like all the time, like in classes and every single moment of their like waking life. I would recommend if you're debating in PF or you're not debating in policy, at least where you don't really have to read like every philosophy book to understand what's going on. Just like do what you need to do, but don't go super crazy and do things that you're not enjoying. I know some people like really have fun doing debate prep. I have fun doing a lot of debate prep. But if you're not having fun anymore, like just don't do it. You know, a few more blocks or whatever aren't going to make or break your success at a tournament, and definitely not going to affect your success overall.
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo that. Like first off, on the point of rankings or like competitive success, I mean, I think if you're just active on the national circuit and you try really hard and you try to learn, you try your best to just improve. Even at that point, like everyone finds a way to rank themselves pretty well, just because there's so many different metrics. Like you have NSTA points, you have bids, you have all these different sorts of ways. So you'll be fine. I think just stay active, know that it's a marathon, not a race. And even on the second point, like I definitely agree, right? Like I think one thing I did my sophomore year was just spend all my time on debate. And I really think I found a lot more valuable things when I started, you know, also doing debate. I think balancing a lot of other activities, and trying to just explore the world a little bit more. We want to hear from you on what advice would you give to those juniors and seniors out there?
I think my advice is really similar. I think this for anything you enjoy. Like too much of a good thing is a bad thing. So what I did, majority of the time, there were times where like I didn't adhere to this advice, but that's why I'm giving the advice. I think the moment the prep you're doing or anything you're doing debate related starts feeling like a chore, that's when you should stop. Because that's basically what burnout is. You stop enjoying it and you just start hating it full out. And I think the reason I burned out so early in my career, like second half of junior year, is because I was doing so much prep all the time. I'd like sit up till 2 a.m. writing a case for a tournament the next day just because I didn't do it before. And like honestly, if I went into that tournament with a case that was 3:30 instead of 4 minutes, it probably wouldn't have changed much. But I just kept writing the case all night, even though I wasn't enjoying it, and that's like why I started disliking debate early on.
Yeah, totally valid. I think, you know, what's really funny coming out of this interview, is I also interviewed the NSTA champs. And the common theme, I think, in those two interviews was just have fun, chill out, and really just try to enjoy the activity, which I really like. Okay, we're going to go on to the final section. So we'll just ask very quick questions. You can answer in like less than 30 seconds, less than 10 seconds. And for this, we'll just start with Julian and then go to Mayo. So first question, favorite song?
Favorite song? I'm listening to the song called like. Wait, okay, go to Mayo. I'll find the name because I just found it yesterday.
Currently, I'm a big fan of "My Eyes" by Travis Scott on Utopia.
Love it.
I think that's a pretty good song.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay. So the song I've been listening to is called Conrad Tokyo by A Tribe Called Quest.
Okay, amazing. Love that question. Okay, we'll get to the second question. Favorite movie? We'll start with Julian again.
Okay. Okay, I'm pretty bad at this. I don't know. I liked Oppenheimer a lot. I saw it like twice. It was really good.
Oh, okay, great. I like that. Mayo?
This is a generic answer, but Interstellar is my favorite movie.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Okay, third question. Favorite book? Let's start with Mayo.
Oh, okay. My favorite book is Animal Farm by George Orwell.
Yes, it's like a classic. Julian, what about you?
Okay. My favorite book is it's called Speaker for the Dead. It's the second book in the Ender Game series.
Oh wow, is that like fantasy?
Yeah, sci-fi.
Wow, interesting. Okay, that's a fun one. Okay, favorite hobby? We'll start with Mayo.
Yeah, my favorite hobby is gaming. I play games a lot.
Yes, sir. Love it. Julian?
I like to bake and cook.
You like to bake? Wait, what do you bake and cook?
Just I don't know. I bake a ton of stuff. I made like what did I make? I made peach cobbler like 2 days ago or something.
Well, I
Maybe
never knew
three.
that.
I don't
That's
know.
good to
But yeah,
know. Yeah, great. Okay.
yeah.
Favorite food. And Julian, you just talked about food, so we'll start with you.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite food. Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I like pasta a lot. I like Parmesan. I just load it onto my pasta. It's really good. I like roti.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Good answer. Mail. What about you?
Yeah, I'm Indian, so I'm a pretty big fan of like butter chicken.
Oh yeah. Yeah, dude, I love that stuff. I ate Indian food, I think, for the first time at NCFLs. Life changing, dude. Life changing. Okay. Next favorite video game. I think I know the answer, but maybe you can start.
So favorite video game of all time is probably CS:GO. I
Yeah.
have like 6K hours in it. So
Okay. No
Damn.
wonder you're so good at Valorant. No wonder you're so good. Julian, what are you? Favorite video game?
I play a lot of chess.
I don't know if I know. I don't even know if that's a video game, but that's valid. I love chess.
Okay, I like Tetris. I like.
Okay. What's your rating on chess? That's a good question.
It's like around like 1900 or like
Oh,
whatever. It
okay.
depends on the system, but
You're actually a good player. That's very solid. Okay.
yeah, I play a lot.
We're going to go into like a little deep question that you can also answer pretty quickly. We'll start with Julian. Is AI more likely a threat or benefit to humanity?
I'll go with benefit.
Okay. Mail.
um, I just watched Mission Impossible, so I think it's definitely a harm.
Mm-hmm. Very valid. Is social media unnecessary or bad? Mail, do you want to answer?
I think it's 100% to mental health and whatnot. It's 100% on that bad.
Yeah, Julian.
Yeah, I'd say probably overall it's bad.
Okay. Nope. Totally valid. One person you want to shout out in this interview.
Uh, okay. I mean, okay, man. Well, you go.
Um, I'd like to shout out the co-captain I had my senior year, Angela Shang. She was another debater at Hawken. She didn't like compete on the NAT circuit as much as we did, but
Yeah.
she basically did majority of the captain work, and I just got to sit there.
Respect.
It's true.
All right, Julian.
Okay. Well, Angela's very good at drawing. I like her drawings a lot. But I'll shout out. There's this kid. He's one of one of the people in my grade. His younger brother. His name's Jack Gallagher. I mean, I don't know how good he's going to be next year, but he's definitely pretty fun to be around and quite a crazy guy. So yeah, I'll shout him out.
Okay, yeah, love it. Okay, I told Meho I would ask this, but if you could summarize your debate career, or if you want to go a little deeper into life, what one sentence would you give me in terms of all of that? And we can start with Meho, because that's the question I told you about.
One sentence. Wait, this is actually a deep question. Hold on.
Yeah, it's tough, it's tough.
Here, I just found a Sun Tzu quote. If you know thy enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles.
Oh my,
I think that's
yeah, I think that's very applicable to what we talked about today. Julian, what about you? One sentence.
All right, I got one. All right, so I just made this up. So if it doesn't really make sense, that's why. But here's what I'd say. I'd say the learned man chops down a tree to build a bridge across the water, but the wise man pushes over that tree and crosses the river.
Wow, that was beautifully poetic.
Thank you.
We watched this interview to try to understand and analyze that. Okay, we're going to approach the final question in this interview. And that question is, what's your message to the world, right? This is not just the beginning, but just to the world, what's your message? And we'll start with Julian because you're so poetic.
Okay. Yeah, nice. All right, so my message to the world.
Yeah.
My message to the world would be, I'll do two things. So first of all, I would say that if anyone needs a debate coach, I'm very willing. But my second message to the world would be that, you know, sometimes in today's society, we become too, you know, trapped in tradition and too worried about what others think about us. But in reality, you should just be yourself with everyone you meet. And people generally value kindness and honesty over professionalism and traditional means of communicating.
Wow, so beautifully said and really deep. Mayho, now you're going to give your message to the world.
Yeah, I can't speak as philosophically as that, but yeah, don't. My message would be don't hate people. Everyone has different opinions and different views, but that doesn't make them hostile or anything. You just have a respectful discussion with people about anything you disagree about.
Beautifully said, and very, very important for, I think, where society's headed right now. But yeah, that was the final question. So thank you guys so much for joining on. Again, Julian is looking to coach some teams, and Mayho, maybe you want to coach some teams. We're trying to do something with Irish Debate. We'll have it on the website at some time. So we're going to promote that. We'll make sure Julian finds some teams. But if you're ever interested in finding some great people, some great debaters, some great coaches, feel free to reach out to them. They're lovely people. And yeah, thank you guys so much for joining today. Really appreciate it. And I thought it was a great interview.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Of course, of course.